Hello.
Hello, sir. How are you?
Hey, AJ.
All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right. Just let me know when you have to leave out, okay?
Okay.
All right. We're gonna let me give me 2 minutes. I'm gonna just introduce. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Celebrating Fatherhood 365. I have a special guest tonight. A good brother of mine. Um, I want to say he has 12 kids, but I'm not sure. He might be close to 12. Um, Elder Tony. We're gonna use your official title tonight, sir. And he don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to have him come on and share with you a little bit about his journey, his story, his life. You know, we always talk about fathers and the role we play in our children's lives and our families' lives, and the benefit of having fathers. But a lot of us were born out of dysfunction. So, we'll be interested to see how his story unfolds and see where he is today. I know you don't have a lot of time, Tony, but welcome to the show. How are you doing?
No, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, all right. I have somebody on that's in the online. I'm gonna bring him on too, but I'm gonna ask him to stay muted. Okay.
Okay.
Just give me a minute to bring him in. Hello, sir. How are you doing this evening, brother Nick? If you don't mind, you can cut your camera off and stay muted. I have a guest I want to interview because he has about 10, 15 minutes, and then I would like to talk to you, okay? So just hang tight and I'll bring you back on, okay? All right, Tony.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us a little bit about your journey, man. Grew up with the father in the home or not in the home?
Grew up with them not in the home, actually.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
single parent, single parent. Just my mom and myself.
Oh, you're an only child?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
On my mom's side,
On your mom's
I
side.
had brothers. On my dad, yeah,
Okay, how many brothers you had on your dad's side?
two.
Two brothers. Okay, okay. The story unfold. I believe everybody really should write a book, man. Everybody has a good story, especially if it's good for archives for family history as well. To keep all this together because as you get older in age, the kids are not going to know the history of how it all unfolded and how it all came to be. Okay.
Right.
Um, so tell us about the growing up with the single mom.
Well, generally, man, my mom didn't raise me in the beginning. I lived with my grandma from the time I was born up until I was like 8 years old.
Oh wow.
My
Okay.
mom was my mom was always there, but I remember living with my grandmother.
Mm.
And during that time, my mom had married, and I had a few stepbrothers, and I used to go back and forth between my mom home and my grandmother's home, like on the holidays,
Okay.
like Easter, Christmas, things of that nature. But I just, I had a bunch of cousins who I grew up with that they called me their little brother. So
Right.
I grew up in Jackson Ward, man. The projects here in
Here
Richmond.
in Richmond, Virginia. Now let me ask you this:
Yeah,
did your mother have more children, or is she just married
no,
somebody with children?
no, she just married somebody with children.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. I didn't know if you had other siblings with her or not, but you did say you were only child that your mother and
Yeah,
father had together. Okay, okay. So you had a lot of family around you and family support growing up as well. So when did your father ever come around much, or did you see him much, or when did you ever connect with him?
I never really connected with him. I knew who he was growing up because my mom's sister. One day, me and her was downtown, and she saw my dad, and she showed, she pointed him out to me and said that was her dad, and she introduced me to him, and I was like, wow. So when I got home, I didn't say when I got home. So when I saw my mom later on that day, I had asked questions about her, and the question is so crazy because when when I asked my mom about him, man, my mom was a little uneasy, and she said, where did you see him at? And I told her, I was with my aunt and we saw him downtown. And so she gave me the story she told me was that her and my dad was together prior to me, being born. And he told her that while she was doing her pregnancy, that if she has a boy, he would marry her. But if she has a girl, he was going, put his hands on her.
Oh
And
wow!
yeah, that's what he literally, but that wasn't what he said. From what she told me, he said he was gonna
Right.
beat her high pots, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, and so that stuck with me for years, man. That he said that, and she had a boy, but he never married her, never was around. And where we lived at in Jackson Ward, man, my dad's mother lived 2 blocks away from my grandmother, my mother's mother.
Oh wow! So your grandmothers live close.
Yeah. They live close. My family, my dad's siblings and my mom's siblings, they all knew each other. They grew up together.
Right.
You know, so they knew who each other was. My dad's siblings actually knew who I was. I just didn't know who they was. They used to see me playing in the neighborhood, and they introduced themselves to me one day while I was playing with one of my friends. Actually, this school that was in Jacksonville called Baker School.
Yeah, I remember Baker.
And and so my mom, my dad's sister, saw me playing with their, some neighbors of theirs, which was my homeboys, and told me to come in. And I went and to see what they wanted, what she wanted, and she was like, "I'm your aunt," and I'm like, "You my aunt?" And I'm looking at her like, "Okay, you my aunt," and I mean, what that's supposed to mean, right? I mean, you talking about 6-year-old, 7-year-old kid,
Right.
who don't even know, who never met you, who don't know who you is, like, and she introduced me to my grandmother, which was my dad's mother. And she told me, this is your grandmother, this is your dad's mom. Now, mind you, my dad wasn't even around when I was being introduced to his family,
Right.
his siblings. They introduced themselves to me. And so I knew who they were because they let me know that they knew who I was just as well. And so I go home, I go running back to my grandmother's house to tell my grandmother what just happened. And my grandma was like, "Oh yeah, you got a grandmother that lives up the street." So she confirmed that they were my dad's, people.
Right.
And I was like, "Dang!" So I was still, kind of puzzled by like, why don't I know who he is?
Right.
Like, why didn't he want me or want to be in my life? So I used to see him off and on for years up until I was probably like 18, and every time I used to see him, I usually be with one of my mother's sisters, and he always used to give me a couple of dollars just to, but I didn't make nothing of it, man. I'm like, he say he's my dad. Okay, I don't know nothing about him. He don't know nothing about me.
Right.
And and I grew up
when
with
did that
with
relationship
friends.
change, or did it ever
It
change?
never changed. Nah, man. It actually, I want to say, when I became an adult, I saw my dad again, and there used to be this club on Second Street called Otto's, and I went in there with my cousin. She was adult at the time, older. She was older than that, and she said, "Come here, I want to show you somebody. I want you to meet somebody." And so now I was about 18 at the time, and we went into the little bar that was on Second Street, and there he was sitting at the bar, and so I saw him, I spoke, and he asked me, he said, "You know who I am?" I said, "Yeah, I know who you is," and he asked me, he said, "Well, who am I?" I said, "You my dad." He said, "Oh, that's all you got to say?" I said, "What am I supposed to say?" You know what I mean? I
Oh
know who you
wow.
are. You know who I am.
Right.
And that was it. He said, "Well," he said, "Can I buy you a drink?" I said, "I don't drink." You know, I said, you know, I'm 18 years old. I said, I don't drink. And so I walked out while my cousin was still there talking to him. I just turned around and walked out. So she came behind me. She said, "Why did you walk out?" I said, "Man, this man don't want to be. He don't want to have no relationship with me." And I said, "I'm okay with it." You know.
Yeah.
And so for years, um, I always, like I said, I always had a relationship with my dad's siblings. Meaning, I knew who they were. We spoke. I spoke to my grandma when I saw them. That was about it. No, like history with being around them, no family gathering or anything like that.
With
And
him,
so
with him, or with them? With him?
with any of them,
Any of them?
it was
Okay,
just a
okay,
high and bad thing,
okay. So did
and
you
so
ever meet with him or reconcile with him at all, or go
I
through a?
did. I did years later, man.
Uh,
After I had kids, my first set of kids, I saw them one day. We was downtown, and I had them with me, and I introduced them to him. My older kids, they're in their 30s now, but they was like about five, maybe five, six, and seven, somewhere around there, that age when I introduced them, when I, told them who he was.
yeah,
That was the first time they ever met him. So,
yeah.
you know, um, they was looking at me like, oh, this your dad, but do you have a relationship with him type stuff. And
Right.
my thing was, man, I just wanted him to see how I was with them, that he should have been that way with me.
Yeah. So you learned some lessons from him. Basically, he wasn't present, so you wanted to be present with
Yeah,
your children. I
yeah,
learned that same lesson from my father.
yeah, man. And
Relationship is
so
important. Being present is important.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yes, indeed.
So years later, man, my dad's youngest sister, she had um a set of twins, which is the same age as my oldest daughter, which is 38. And they were young then, and so they used to see me in the neighborhood because I still, my grandmother was still living in there. Both grandparents were still living in the neighborhood, and I used to go by, visit with my aunt, man, sit with my aunt, hang out, at her house a lot. And
Yeah.
so my kids knew who a few of their cousins was, which was my cousin actually. And so years later, my dad was in the hospital. I was about 49 years old, man, and my cousin had called me and said, "Hey, your dad's in the hospital," and I'm like, "Yeah." She was like, "Yeah, they say he got cancer," and I said, "Okay, what you want me to do about it?" She was like, "You don't want to go and visit him?" I said, "For what?" That was my response. Like, for
Right.
what? I mean, I don't really have nothing to say. I don't know nothing about him. I don't even really know the man.
Yeah.
And so at that time, my wife, she told me, she said, you should go. And I'm like, man, and I wound up going eventually. My wife and I met my cousin up at the hospital. I had three of my daughters with me at the time.
Mm.
And I introduced them to my dad and my dad's wife during the time that my dad, was in the hospital, and of course, like I said, he was sick from cancer, and
What kind of
that's when
cancer
I
did he
made my
have?
amends.
You know what kind of
I'm,
cancer
I'm
he?
not sure. I'm not sure. To
Okay.
be honest, I'm not
Okay.
sure. Um, but I just know that that's where he had died from, and
Yes, sir.
so um, I'm there at the hospital, and I just looked at him, man, and was like, wow. And and I asked myself, well, how are you? He just, looked at me. He was like, he okay. He seen better days, of course. And my dad was up there in age, man. He was in his 70s, late 70s then,
Oh,
you know.
okay. How old were you?
And I was 49
Okay.
when when I made amends with him, and my kids and my wife was with me. And I was like, for a long time, I wanted some answers, but I just don't know, if he would have, really gave me the answers that I wanted.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I was told years prior, like 4 years prior, that I had some unforgiveness in my heart by a preacher that came to a church that I was at. And, he had prophesied over me and was telling me that I had some unforgiveness in me. And I don't, I didn't never think nothing of it because I'm living my life, right?
Right.
And when he said that to me, I'm looking at him like, what you mean? I got some unforgiveness. And he went on to say, you got some unforgiveness. He said, it's with your dad. And I was like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
How do he even know that, I did resent my dad, right?
Right.
And I just was baffled, man. I ain't gonna tell you no lie. I was just baffled by him saying that. And so it took about 4 years, which led up to my dad, being sick and being in the hospital. 4 years later, after that incident had happened in that church, and that's what made me make amends, because I remember the preacher telling me I needed to forgive him, and the forgiveness wasn't for him; it was for me.
Amen.
Okay. And so I forgave him at that very moment, man. And I told him, I said, man, listen. I said, I know what's going on with you. I'm sorry, you're going through this. But I forgive you, and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And he just looked at me and he was like, I don't know, for some reason he said he forgive me too. And I'm like, well, what do you need to forgive me for? I ain't did nothing. But I just went on and took it for what it was worth, man. And I said, man, I love you. And that was it. And at that
was
moment,
that the last
man,
time you saw him?
No, actually, 2 weeks. I was with him during the time he was in the hospital. Man, I went to visit him every day up until he passed away.
Oh, okay.
So it was about 2 weeks, man, that I spent with him, and not really asking him a whole bunch of questions or anything, but just checking on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going to see him, making sure he was comfortable, I guess.
Yeah.
And, my dad's wife at the time, she thanked me for, showing up and coming and all that. But during his funeral, man, was when I found out that me and my dad was more alike than different.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that interesting to find that out?
Yeah. And it was so ironic, man, because none of the guys that he grew up with knew me.
Yeah.
I knew of me. They knew of my brothers. But they didn't know he had another son.
But as soon as they saw you and they say, hey, you act just, or you remind me of,
No, it wasn't one of those things. It was like, oh wow, because my dad's name was Alfonso, and they was like, oh wow, you Alfonso's son, and because everybody was looking at the obituary. Where he said he had, when he said he had a surviving son, because my other brothers has passed away.
Oh wow!
So when they seen that he had a surviving son, it was like, what? They was looking, kind of strange at the fact because they never knew.
Right.
And so, but one of his friends did know who I was because him and my mom worked together. Mm-hmm. So he always knew who I was over the years. He knew my dad had, me. And knew that was my dad. I used to go and watch my dad play softball with my mom when I was young. Didn't even know why we used to go to Lux Field, why we used to go to these softball games during that season.
Oh, wow.
But I found out years later, we used to go and watch my dad play softball. And so, I played a little baseball.
She never told you that was your dad?
No.
That's interesting.
No. Yeah. Never told me. We just went.
Well, the good thing is you got those last 2 weeks. You got to spend some time with him and share with him. So let me ask you the question: impact.
Yeah.
You mentioned one impact that he had on you being present with your children, and I mentioned 12. Do you have 12 or is it 11?
It's 11.
You do? Okay. I tried to give you an extra one. So with the relationships you have with your children and being present in their life. Are there any other lessons that you learned from him, consciously or unconsciously? Because being present was a good lesson to learn. What else did you pick up from him not being present in your life or are you still on that journey?
Well, I'm not even sure if I'm still on that journey, but one of the lessons that I remember that I've learned was, like I said, I played sports growing up, and my dad was a big sports person too. He played basketball, he played softball, and I played basketball, softball, and football. And he was kind of like a legend in his time, as far as the sports.
Yeah.
And I had made a name for myself, in the neighborhood for my athletic ability. So it was like when I heard at the his friends talking about him at the funeral, when I got up, man, and spoke, because I had to. For some reason, I felt like I had to speak at his funeral because I knew there was a lot of people in there that didn't know who I was.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted them to know that I was, his son, and I was that son that y'all don't know about, right?
Right.
So that was the reason why I got up there and I spoke. And I made it clear. I said my dad was never in my life. I said I don't regret it. I said I did make amends with him, in these last days. I said, but I did, have a relationship with his siblings.
Yeah.
And I thank them for, introducing themselves to me and actually making it known that I was their nephew during the times,
Right.
the later years of me growing up, because I was kind of like a teenager when, I was around them more.
You met more of the family. So you spent time you spent time with your cousins and other family members, but not necessarily him.
Right. I spent time with his sisters. I spent time with the cousins that they had, that my aunts and uncles had. I got to know who they were and met them and was around them, but more than I was around my dad, man. And again, he was never there. We never had a relationship. We didn't never really have a conversation until, the days of his life.
Yeah.
And the one thing that he did say to me, and, on his deathbed, was that he said, man, you got a beautiful wife. He said, love her and take care of her.
Yeah.
That was his last words to me.
Yeah, that is awesome. Now, I know I'm keeping you over. It's 9:30 now. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story, your journey with you. And, I appreciate you for that. Hopefully it helps somebody. And, this show is designed to help to talk about celebrating fatherhood 365 days out of the year, because so often fathers are overlooked, and you being an example to your 11. And it's a roller coaster ride. It's not always good. It's not always bad. But it's a part of your story, and it's a part of the journey. And I think the biggest takeaway I got from tonight is your father wasn't present, but at least you are present in your kid's life. You're open. The door is open to them. They come, because I know sometimes I heard you talk about this. Sometimes the house is empty, it's just you and your wife. Then you turn around, somebody of them came back home for a season. So that's being daddy. Yeah. That's all about. All a part of the journey, man. I appreciate you for that. I definitely want to have you back on again.
AJ,
huh?
One thing I will say, man, that
what you got?
When I forgave him, man, that was probably the biggest moment and biggest thing that I could have ever done for my own life.
Yes.
Being spiritually, driven, man. I don't think if I had have done that, I wouldn't be where I'm at now, like mentally, spiritually, and, so forth, because it taught me that even then, my dad, purpose wasn't for him to be a dad. I learned that later on, but I found out that the purpose for him was just for him to plant the seed, which me being the seed. And I didn't understand it at first, but as I got into ministry, I found out more about that portion of my life, on why he wasn't present and what was the purpose of, my being here.
Yeah.
And my dad's brother helped me to see that. When because I talked to my dad's brother a lot. He was more like a dad to me than my own dad.
Oh yeah, I think I met him before.
Yeah, you did at one of our other groups.
Right.
And he helped me to understand my dad and why my dad wasn't present. And I thank God for him for sharing that with me, because had he not shared that with me, I might have still been bitter.
Yeah.
I might have still been a little bitter.
And I always say unforgiveness is like you drinking poison, but you expect the other person to die.
Oh man,
You drinking it and holding it in, and then sometimes we don't even realize that we drank the poison.
Right.
But other people can see it in us, the unforgiveness. So the pastor that spoke that to you 4 years prior.
Because we can pass that on, man.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing with me.
Oh man, thank you for having me.
And I definitely want to have you back on again. I want to do a panel discussion next time. Maybe we'll pre-record.
Okay.
I know it's a little late for you, but continue, man, to support, and and I'll see you Sunday. Okay.
All right. I appreciate you, man. Y'all have a blessed evening.
You too. Take care.
All right.
All right. That was Elder Tony from my church, actually. Had him on, and he has 11 kids, and we talked about his journey with his father. I have on the line now Nick. Are you available now to talk, or did you want to share?
Yeah, I'm around. Sure who's on. I appreciate the discussion with the gentleman beforehand. I really took some stuff from that, kind of related a bit to it as well, and got me some stuff to think about in my own journey there. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Everybody has a story, and I enjoy talking to people, especially fathers, about their journey. I'm going to have some children come on. Actually, I interviewed my son a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about being a father himself. So that was pretty interesting to do that. And that was just one of mine. I have 6, so maybe I'll get one of my girls to come on and talk about how they perceived me in this process. And I'm okay with whatever they say. I know I wasn't perfect. They know I wasn't perfect. So, that's okay. So how was your relationship with your father?
So I grew up in Minnesota and spent the school year with my mom, and then I traveled to Colorado to see my father for the summers. And I did that as a very young child. Just low income families on both sides, so it was tough. Never any money. As far as when I went to the summers in Colorado, I really look forward to that, to spend time with my father and all that. But thinking about it back is we haven't had the best relationship. He's had it rough himself. He's an alcoholic. He's had a tough childhood himself with his father. And that's all I knew growing up, was watching them drink and party. And I actually liked that, because I got to hang out with all my cousins, do whatever we wanted. We had fun while they partied on weekends. I stayed at home all day during the summers while they were at work, doing whatever. So I kind of didn't mind that, but I was too young to kind of know better really what was happening.
Right. So did you learn some bad habits from your father, or did you learn what not to do from your father?
I learned a little bit of both, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, so, the bad habits, actually, I got lucky and somehow managed to go to college out of all this. And it was growing up in Minnesota where, my mom had remarried to someone normal. So I got to actually get in a regular house, go to a regular suburb high school, and then, kind of where I was expected to go to college. So I was the first person in my whole family that even would think about doing that. So,
oh, wow. So you graduated?
Yep, I went to college. I was a computer science major. And I actually, got lucky in that aspect that I got out of all the negativity and the bad upbringings. And I actually didn't even drink or anything even until I went to college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was a three-sport athlete. I was all state track and football. Um, so I was an athlete where I didn't even think about, drinking or anything like that in high school. And it wasn't until college where I was done. I was like, I don't want to play sports anymore. I'm not good enough to do D1. I had some D2 offers, but I was just like, that's not, I don't want to play anymore. I did practice every single day for years, um,
Yes.
no breaks. It was
Yeah, I remember.
football,
I know
basketball,
that.
and track. So after school, every single day. And
Yeah.
when I got to college, I was like, okay, I just want to be a college kid. I want to, go to college, have fun, friends. And that's when I kind of started drinking weekends. And it wasn't that big of a, we partied, but everybody did. And I
Yeah.
never became a problem until way after, until into my 30s, to where I, got married and was drinking with my partner and things of that nature. And then we had my son, and just the dynamics changed. She grew up real wealthy, in her family in Boulder, Colorado. Um, kind of everything handed to her for the most part. And our family dynamics just didn't mesh well.
Right.
Both of her parents are software engineers, the same as me, but my parents are very low income, partying. They don't drink. They're very conservative, and our family just like didn't seem to mesh well. And I started drinking more, and then I had my son, and it's just like I would go on benders, and I never did this throughout my whole life. Um,
Really?
and I never. It
So
was
did
really
you
on a
did you be
weekend
so would
thing.
you consider yourself to be you became an alcoholic during that
Yeah,
period?
yeah. So,
So you followed your dad in that respect.
yep. So it's kind of a weekend warrior thing. Then at some point, it just progressed and progressed, and then I would go on benders for a day or two, and I was managing my career still, because I don't know, I was able to do that at some point, but then the shit hit the fan, and as far as I had my son, and we ended up getting divorced when he was just 1 years old. Um, and there's a lot more to that,
Yeah.
but the hostility that was there at those times were things that she did during those times to me and whatnot. And I was sober for 9 years.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Sober for 9 years. I had one short relapse about 4 years ago, and I owned up to that, and it wasn't even a big one. Um, but then, like I had mentioned, so I've been trying to learn from my past with my father and try to do good with my son, and I have.
Yeah.
We've
How old is
followed.
your son now?
He just turned 10. I haven't seen him in 11 months or talked to him in 11 months during this whole court procedural
Oh,
thing.
wow.
I can kind of discuss that just a little bit. I mean,
Well,
I've coached.
are you still dealing with court issues now?
Yep. So we have the
Okay.
review
Well,
hearing I mentioned
yeah,
next.
I don't want to get too much into those weeds because I don't want to you they might use this against you. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So
Yep. Okay. Yeah.
just
So there's stuff pending. I've done everything with my son. I kind of like every single day we're doing stuff. We're never sitting around. I've traveled 6 countries with him, Central America and South America,
right,
Chinatown
right.
and Galapagos, and we've done in Hawaii, all through the United States as well. So many travel adventures we've had, and I've coached him his football and basketball since he was 4 every year, his teams. So I felt like I'm present there for him. He's called me super dad a
Yeah.
lot.
Do y'all live in the same city now?
Yeah, we do. We're
Oh,
very
that's
close.
good.
Next
That's
city
good.
over.
So you're working your way back to spending more time with him.
Yeah, so that's the goal,
That's
I
awesome. And you have the one son?
just have one.
Okay, now
Yeah,
do you have any siblings yourself?
I do. I have another half brother, about 2.5 years younger than I, and he's battling through the same stuff, same alcohol issues,
Oh,
same kind of
really?
thing, divorce procedures, and it's just runs in the family.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
really unfortunate, and I think he's learning from me on, on what I'm doing, trying to stay sober, and how things have gotten better, and on what happens when you don't do that. It's always bad.
Right, right. It doesn't end well. I know you've been taking my class, parenting class, and one of the things I preach a lot and stand on is self care. Taking care of yourself and then teaching children the values and standards they need. What was the biggest lesson I would say you learned from taking that class?
Yeah, so you definitely did preach the teaching the kids. You know, teach, teach, teach. Teach
Right.
them about respect. Teach them about, what to do, what not to do. Everything along those lines. And then the self care, obviously, I have to be good in order for him to be good. Uh,
Absolutely.
so that's a priority for me, and it's been, I've definitely prioritized that. But just another reminder to keep moving along those lines. It can't ever stop. Um, I want him to grow up and to see me as a role model, just to see that I'm working hard to do all these things, to be with him. That the things that I went through, that he'll never have to even, hopefully never even know about any of that.
Right, right, right. Because I always say what's not transformed gets transferred.
Sure.
So you're doing it. You're doing it right. But how's the career going for you? Are you still in the computer software?
Yep, I'm still a software engineer. I'm lucky to have, to be able to be where I'm at actually. I've been with my company for 17 years, and that's unheard of in software development.
Yeah, that's unusual.
Usually people are switching, to try to get pay, but I've been here so long, and it's a family, and I'm fine with my pay. Um, and everything's just progressing now with AI taking
Yeah.
over. I'm not even coding anymore. So just
You're not
adapting.
coding anymore. So what are y'all
Not
doing?
really. I mean, it's all AI does all the coding now.
Oh
I'm
wow.
directing. I direct the AI.
Yes.
So, I kind of I'm like the manager of it, and it's pretty crazy what's happening in that aspect of things.
So that
Uh,
means things are actually getting sped up a little bit too.
uh,
Problems are getting solved faster and move.
yeah, and there's the scare. Okay, is it going to start taking over jobs? And
Yeah.
yeah, it has started already, but I think it's more so the young, the junior engineers where that are kind of getting
Worried.
lost in the shuffle there. The senior guys like myself, it's hard to really replace because AI, it's smart, but you still got to know, still got to review everything and know
Absolutely.
it's doing the right stuff that it should be doing, stuff along those lines.
Yeah, you
So
still got to. You still definitely need to be reviewed. I've used it quite a bit lately, and still need to read through it and check it
for sure.
and challenge it sometimes. Because it seems to tend to want to go one way, and you say, no, we need to go this way. You need to look at it this way, and it's pretty
Exactly.
interesting. Yeah, yeah. So is your father still alive today?
Yeah, so my father's there, and it's the thing with our relationship, it just hasn't been great, and it really is at its worst as it's ever been right now.
Very dysfunctional.
Um, yeah, it's like I don't even really want to even be around him or really even have a relationship at all.
Really? So is he still drinking?
Um, I I still talk with my stepmom because it's tough because I'm very close with her still, and if I'm not seeing him, I'm not seeing her really, and I'm not going around family events, because of this and our falling out really, and it's really just kind of I had time to reflect on really how shitty of a dad he was growing up and how he's never contacted me, never tried, taught me how to be an alcoholic, then really it just seems like he's like resentful towards my success in life and that he'll be working the rest of his life, never saved for retirement, never taught me anything about investing or anything along those lines.
Yeah.
And now that I'm successful, it seems like they think that I'm too, that I'm too good or whatever, that, that I'm not going back to my roots or whatever. And that's not it at all.
Yeah.
And now I'm just kind of reflecting and trying to think like, man, that's messed up. Why would he do that to his son? Or why would he even think like that? Or why would
Why do you think he thinks like that though?
That's the only thing I can think of.
But why do you think he thinks like that?
Just just him never reaching out, conversations like when I travel on my trips, he never asks, he never wants to see pictures, he never, like, I'm trying to tell him about stuff that I'm doing and he's just like
But have you thought about, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask you a question. Can you give me $2 million right now if I needed it? If I wrote a business plan for $2 million, could you give it to me?
No.
You know why you can't give it to me?
Why is that?
Because you don't have it. Right?
Okay.
So think about your father. There are a lot of lessons he didn't learn growing up as a child. He can't give you what he doesn't have. So if he doesn't have the knowledge base that you have right now, then his thinking is not going to be the same, correct?
Yeah, I understand that, and I understand he didn't have anything.
So if he grew up in dysfunction, maybe his father was an alcoholic, and he grew up in dysfunction, and if he never transformed, guess what he's going to bring to you? Dysfunction.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
He taught me how to be angry. He taught me how to be, not great around people sometimes, and even around women. And it's just like all of that I know came from him.
All dysfunction.
And I feel hostility about that. And I know it's not his fault, Rolf. I mean, that's how he grew up. That's all he knows.
That's all he knows. So just like the caller that I was talking to before, what did he have to do for his father, who wasn't in his life either?
And that's exactly where I was taking my point from, that I took from him, where he said he had to forgive him. And I got thinking like, man, okay, what does that do for me if I forgive him?
It sets you free.
Okay.
It sets you free, and it gives you perspective. You can love him as a human being. He may not have been the greatest father to you, but as a man who's gone through some stuff, who in essence could still be the little boy emotionally. You know what I'm saying? Imagine if he was still 16 years old, looking for his dad and not knowing how to be a dad himself. You got to forgive him for that, and then you find some way to even just to have a conversation with him periodically. Even if you talk to him once a month or once a week or whatever, you have to start to build on that. But forgiveness is for you. It's not for him. It sets you free. Because right now we're holding on to what he didn't do, what he could have did, what he should have did, versus let me accept him for where he is and who he is. I can't change him.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I had to do that with my father because my father left when my mother and father divorced at 5 years old. I was 5 years old when they divorced. He ghosted the whole family, never saw him much, right?
Yeah.
But then when I found out that his father passed away when he was 5 years old, he had no map. He had no map of how to be present in a child's life because his father was gone all his life from the age of 5. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I would think though. I would think that.
So you want to hear something? You want to hear something even funnier than that? I divorced my wife at the time when my son was 5 years old. You see the generational, I'll call it a generational curse or the generational pathology that goes on within families, unconscious. I wasn't even aware of it at the time, until I found out about my father. So I had to let go of he wasn't there, he doesn't know me, he doesn't understand all of these things, and he passed away when I was like 37 years old.
Okay.
So your father's still here. Forgiveness is for you, not for him.
Yeah.
Because you don't want that all of that you're holding against him to be transferred to your son. Because
Like,
there's
yeah,
some
I'm kind of worried about that because my son's gonna see that our relationship is, basically
yeah,
non-existent or not there, and my son's probably
dysfunctional.
gonna think that's
Your
okay.
your relationship with your son will become dysfunctional because you're not open to forgiveness. And how can you teach your son about forgiveness if you haven't forgiven? Because one day, guess what? One day you may need your son to forgive you, but if you haven't taught him or modeled forgiveness, how is he going to learn it?
Well, I'm facing that right now. They're saying the opposing counsel is saying my son doesn't want to talk to me. They're saying that.
See? So that's why it's important for us to let go and forgive so that others can forgive us. So you might need to forgive your father so that your son can forgive you one day.
It's a good point. It's a good way to look at it.
It's perspective. It's all perspective. Food for thought. You're not the only man that's in this situation, and this show is about celebrating fatherhood. But the unfortunate piece about celebrating fatherhood is, guess what? Most of us come from dysfunction. And we carry that. We carry that.
Yeah, definitely seems that way.
Yeah, we carry that our shoulders. We carry that weight on our shoulders of unforgiveness, even to the point of your ex-spouse. We got to forgive her too.
Yeah, and over this whole time, that's been really difficult for me, and I've been working through it with my therapist, and it's just like it's hard because it's like, man, things that she's doing, and at some point, I get those thoughts in my head. Okay, I gotta, you know, I just don't feel good about it. It's like, okay, well, how am I gonna get her back? And it's like those thoughts I cannot have.
Yep, it's all about letting go of the anger, the frustration, the bitterness, the resentment. Those are all bricks that we carry when we have unforgiveness.
And I did that, and it was 9 years that I did that after our divorce, and our relationship was actually great. And
Absolutely.
But then now we're starting back over at square one again, and I can't even fathom trying to start that back over again.
Well, you have to do it for the sake of your son. Y'all have a son together.
Yeah.
And what he wants more than anything is to see his parents get along. When you guys are fighting, it causes him to have to pick sides.
Yeah, I don't want that.
And guess whose side he's going to pick first?
Mm-hmm.
Mom.
Especially
Mom.
right
If he
now.
lives with mom, he's going to pick mom. So forgiveness, I guess that's the theme of today's show, because we all have to experience that, and I think it's important for us to forgive for ourselves. You know what I'm saying? It's not about the other person. It's not. Yes, we're going to forgive them, but I'm just going to not carry these bricks anymore. I don't need that weight on me. I don't need the stress of it all. I don't need to carry the bitterness, anger, resentment. You didn't do anything for me. You weren't there for me. I had to look at my father through his eyes. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have a father. So how could he give me $2 million if he never got it from his father?
But you'd think they would learn, just like think I would learn to try to be a better father.
Well, look at it this way. You think you would learn, but you followed in your father's footsteps.
Right?
Your father was an alcoholic. You think you would have learned from that, but what happened? You stepped in the same mud puddle he did. You should have learned. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be careful what measure you meter out to other people, because we can apply that same measure to you. That's why I say what's not transformed gets transferred. See, you didn't reframe the lessons that your father was trying to teach you, because your father was trying to teach you not to drink. But you drank thinking, well, I can handle it. I'm okay. And then, oops.
Right.
You see? And then you look at other bad habits that he may have that you just picked up unconsciously. Now, did you intend to become an alcoholic? Absolutely not. There was not consciousness to that. There was the unconsciousness to become that. And look at all the other unconscious things that you picked up from him. And you have to be careful that you don't transform or transfer those unconscious things to your son.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why it's important for us to become conscious parents, right?
Yep.
You have to always be aware of what you're saying and what you're doing in the presence of your children.
Yeah, it's got to be that positive role model. I'll be thinking about every little thing now, on what I'm transferring, and I've done my best.
Yeah.
There's things
Yeah.
that I don't even notice that I'm doing probably.
Yeah, that's why with me, I had a lot of alcoholics in my family. I never kept alcohol in my house. My kids, I don't drink, and I never will. I mean, I'm allergic to alcohol. I get sick if I drink. But I don't have alcohol in my home, and, never will, So my kids, if they drink, it's because they drink it because they choose to, but never to excess, because I'm not an excessive person. I had to model that for them. And that came from me having a lot of alcoholics and drug users in my family.
Yeah.
Consciousness of what am I teaching my kids, and what am I doing to prevent the next generation from becoming alcoholics or drug users. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Family is important. Maybe one day you and your father will be able to take a walk and have a conversation, or take a drive and have a conversation. But you got to remember who taught him.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to move forward with that. I'm sure I can forgive, but it's like,
well, you can ask him questions. You can ask him questions. Ask him questions about his relationship with his father. Was his father in his life? What did his father teach him?
Yeah, I know it was horrible. He was the same. He was bad. He beat his, hitting the wife and drinking and hitting him, I'm sure. And I know it was real bad.
Absolutely. So a lot of times when he's stressed, you're talking to the little boy in him that had to experience all of that abuse and neglect, Mm-hmm. Remember, we say in times of stress, we all regress back to the age and stage of initial trauma. Your father sounds like he's been traumatized. If we look at the behaviors, where do behaviors come from? Fear, stress, and trauma.
All right. Yeah, I'll have to.
That's where they come from. Well, I'm going to let you go, man. It is 10 o'clock. I normally shut down at 10. I want to thank you for coming on and sharing with me your story.
Thank you so much, AJ. I appreciate everything that you do for me.
I appreciate you too, man. I appreciate. Hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I gave you something to think about for tonight.
You definitely did. Lots.
All right. Well, that's a win for me then. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. And hopefully you'll continue to watch. We're here on every Monday and Wednesday. Not saying you got to show up every time. If you go to my website like you did, if you want to do a donation, you can do that as well. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to pop in once a week.
I appreciate that. You take care.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. All right. That was Nick out of Colorado. This show is going to go international one day. I appreciate him coming on and sharing his journey. I think with Tony, and what Tony said helped him to put some things together. Oh, he's coming back. Let's see what he wants to say. Nick, did you have something else? You got to unmute. You have to unmute.
I heard you saying something about, like, you tried catching me at the end there, so I didn't have anything else. I didn't know if you were trying to say something.
Oh, no. We're good. Thank you.
Okay. Got it.
I'm just closing out tonight, okay?
Cool, man. Have a good night.
All right, you too. All right. Appreciate him coming on, and hopefully, if you go back and look at this, you'll get something out of it. I believe in fatherhood, and our struggle is real. Just like the mothers out there, there's a lot of programs for women, a lot of things for women. They even grants for women more so than they are for men these days. It's truly amazing how society has flipped, and we just one direction. I just want us to bring balance to the equation. That's all. I'm not saying that women are not important. I'm just saying, hey, if we're gonna celebrate woman, let's celebrate man. If we're gonna do for one, let's do for all. Maybe that might be socialism to some people, but emotionally, we are all one, and we need to remember that everybody needs love, everybody needs attention, everybody has a story to tell, and maybe we all need to write a book that will last the generations. Because I'm gonna tell you, real life TV has nothing on real life. When you read real life, it's like you just can't make this stuff up. No, it's like unbelievable the things that people have gone through and endured in their lifetime. So with that being said, I want to say thank you for spending time with us this evening, and we will see you on Wednesday at 9 with Celebrating Fatherhood 365. God bless. See if I can get out of here. Do.
Record.